Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello's Designs. Father's Day is coming in June in the United States. Today we will do a Father's Day card using the new Lavinia stamps, Tock and Cogs set 2 to create a great card to give to Dad. So let's go ahead and take a look at the supplies that we're going to be using today. We will be using the multifarious cardstock, the Smooth and Supreme. I usually take about a 7-inch piece and cut it down to be 4 3/4 by 3.5 inches. For the border around the card, I just take a very simple piece of cardstock, colors cardstock, and we cut that to 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. For our card base, I take an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock and cut that in half. Then we can take that piece and fold it in half to make the card base. The stamps that we will be using today will be the Lavinia Tock, which is LAV 794, and the Lavinia Cogs set 2, that one is LAV 776. We will also be using a word stamp or a texture stamp. Here are some examples. This is one of the new Lavinia texture stamps. They have several of them that you could choose from. They also have the steampunk words background that you can use. Nellie's Choice has a word stamp as well. I actually have an old stamp that I will be using today. It's just a wooden stamp, but the same thing, it's just the word textures. For our inks today, we are going to use several different kinds. For our stamping inks, we will use brown and black, and I'm going to use the VersaFine Clair Acorn and the VersaFine Clair Nocturne. For creating our background, I'm going to use the Elements by Lavinia. We'll be using the Truffle and the Della Blue. And then for some of my other artwork, we will be using the Distress Inks, Pumice Stone, Chipped Sapphire, and Faded Jeans. For my sentiment stamp, I could not find something that I really wanted to use. So what I have done is just created one on my printer, and then we will do the coloring in on that. I just had I wanted to do something with time because I'm using the clock, so this was the route that I went. So when you can't find a sentiment that you think is just perfect, if you've got a computer and a printer, then you can just print out one and use it. We will also be using some art markers today. I'm going to do a little bit of the accent. Mine are just some simple little art markers. I've got a color that's a brown that kind of matches, and this is actually they call it a cool gray, but it's kind of a bluish gray color, so it also matches the colors that I'm using today. For our clock, I did want to go ahead and make that one stand out a little bit, so I've got some dimensionals that I'll be using for that. I'll be using my blending brushes and some little mini daubers today to put our colors down on our card. We'll also be using a stamping platform. So I've got a stamping platform here. I usually put a sticky grid down on mine. That way I don't have to worry about using magnets. When we put our card together, you can use either a paper glue or sometimes for speed when I'm making these demonstrations, I just go ahead and use a running tape. And then you will need scissors because since we do cut out both our sentiment and our clock, you'll just need a pair of scissors so that you can do that. So let's go ahead and get started making our card. So what we're going to do is start out right now by doing our art card background. So we're going to take the Lavinia Multifarious Smooth and Supreme cardstock and our 2 Elements inks. So we've got Truffle and we've got the Della Blue. So what I'm going to do is I actually want to have a lot of texture kind of showing. So we'll start out with our blue, our Della Blue. And I'm just going to, I don't really want to necessarily put this on smoothly. I want to have all the different depths and textures. I even want some of the brush marks to show up. So basically just take your brush and start putting it on there. I don't even want to wipe some of it off on the side because I want to get that darker and lighter shades and texture on it. Alright, so now that I've got a little bit of the basic color covering the entire thing, I'm going to smooth that out just a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and go in and start adding a lot more of brush marks and textures and variations and shades. This just kind of gives it a little bit more of that distressed look. So literally just taking my brush, like I said, I'm not brushing it off onto the side to get excess ink off because I want that to be in there to give it that little bit of texture. Try and get some of my brush marks to show as well. I actually got a little bit on my ink on my fingers, so I'm going to let that be part of the texture. Alright, so it probably looks a lot lighter on camera than it does when you actually see it. I know it probably looks really light, but this is, see if I can tilt it and get you to see that. Now it just looks really nice and textured. And then we're going to take our brown, which is the acorn color, I'm sorry, the truffle. And we're going to just, with this color, we're just going to dash it. I mean, we don't want it to be a solid little amount on there. We're just trying to get some really cool effects. And some texture on there. We don't mind having light spots and dark spots. Alright, so there we kind of have our card. I may take just a tiny little bit on a couple of places that I think are a little light with my blue and just blend a little bit more. And there we go. So what we're wanting is to have that texture show through. So you can kind of see how I've got texture on the example here. And so we've got our texture here. Alright, so what we're going to do next is we're going to take our sentiment, our background words, and we're going to go ahead and put that on to our card. what I want to do is kind of have it going across this bottom portion. So I'm just going to take a piece of scrap paper and just kind of lay it across. And then I'm going to take my acorn, the brown color, ink up my stamp. And since this is a background one, you don't have to put a whole lot of ink on there. If you want to make it a second generation, you can. I'm probably not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of go with whatever we've got here. So I'm going to take that, lay it down, press down, and then there we've got a little bit of those words kind of just going across the corner there. Alright, and so now at this point we are ready to go ahead and start putting our cogs on. My hands are kind of filthy, so I'm going to stop for just a second and clean them off because I don't want to get it smudged all over my card. So we're going to take our Lavinia Cogs Set 2. And we're going to use all of these to kind of create just a kind of a hodgepodge of the cogs on the top left hand side there, just kind of randomly put in. So let me get all of those out. And we're going to go ahead and use our stamping platform. So I'm going to get all of my stamps and lay them to the side here. And get my stamping platform. And we're going to lay our piece onto our stamping platform. Let me get some of these things out of the way so that we're not knocking things off the table. Alright, so we're going to do that, and this is, as you can see here, I just very basically randomly started putting these on. So that's what I'm getting ready to do. And I'm going to start out with the brown. Now, I don't want to get ink all over my my sticky grid there, so I'm just going to take a little piece of scrap paper here, put it around so that it will keep it clean. Alright, so let's just start laying our cogs kind of randomly around. It really doesn't matter exactly where we put them at this point in time, but I just want to make sure that I'm going to have them randomly put around there. I'm going to wait on this one, maybe put one down here. Alright, and then we will ink those up with our acorn. So I'm going to turn this for the moment. Uh-oh, and I just pressed that down. I actually grabbed the wrong stamp pad. I think because I want to use the acorn, and I grabbed elements. So let's just grab a baby wipe real quick here and start over on that. Because I actually want the little bit lighter color, and I want the permanent, the ink. So let's just start over with that, and now we've got the right one. So we're going to use the VersaFine Clair Acorn. All my stamps inked up. Alright, I'll go ahead and wipe those down real fast so I don't get ink all over my fingers again. And now we will place some more. Let's see, I need to get maybe one right about in here. And let's see, maybe one right about there. We can come back with our browns in just a minute after we do our blues, so we can kind of see how the layout looks. So I've got a couple more that I'm adding in. I'm going to ink that up real fast. And stamp those down. Alright. We'll wipe that off again, and then we'll go to our blue, which I am actually using the Distress Oxide Faded Jeans for my blues. Let's see, I'm going to put a large blue one right about there, and I like it to overlap a little bit, so that gives us a little bit of depth. Put that one there. And do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and cover up my brown so I don't stick my elbow in it, which I've been known to do. Faded jeans. And press down on that. Alright, let's see. I think this one I'll get a little more pressure on. Alright, we're looking pretty good there. Let's see, we've got a couple little holes, it looks like, that we might want to fill in. So I'm going to go ahead and put a blue one right about there. And I think that's going to be good with our blues, and then I'll just fill in one or two maybe smaller brown ones here in just a moment. Again, this will be up to you as to what you want to do, how many cogs you want. If you just want a few of them, you can do that. If you'd like to have a whole bunch overlapping, just do whatever feels right for whatever you're wanting to design. Let's see, I think we will do a brown one there. And then maybe one more blue one. Let's see. Let's see. I'm trying to decide whether I want a bigger one or a smaller one there. Let's kind of do a smaller one. Okay. Alright, and I think I like the way that background looks. So now we can go ahead and set our stamping platform aside. And we are ready to go ahead and move on to the clock and our sentiment. So what we'll do is take our sentiment that we printed out, and we'll cut that out. And then we will take our clock. Let me find that clock stamp that I had sitting right here. There it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a little scrap piece of cardstock, and we'll stamp this on. I decided to cut off the stem part instead of making it a pocket watch, just to make it a clock. So we will do that when we actually cut that out. So the first thing that we need to do is go ahead and stamp our clock. So I've just got a little scrap piece here. I'm probably going to go ahead and pop that back onto my platform, just because I always like to make sure that if I don't get it stamped the way I like, I can go back and stamp again. So there's our little scrap piece and our clock. And I'm going to stamp my clock with the Nocturne, the black ink. Sure we get a good clean image. I think I'm going to add just a tiny little bit more ink. I always like my images to be really dark and crisp. So a lot of times I do end up stamping mine twice, just so I can be sure I get that really good crisp dark impression. All right. So now we can take that off of our stamping platform. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this piece and this piece. I'll go ahead and turn the camera off so that you don't have to sit here and watch me cut it out. And then after I come back, we will color in our two pieces. Okay, so now I have cut out my two pieces, and we are going to go ahead and color them in. Now I'm going to use the pumice stone distress ink for coloring in both the background of the sentiment and on the clock. And what I'm going to do is just take one of my little tiny daubers and just take that, and I'm just going to cover the entire surface of both pieces that I've cut out to give a nice little background color. Didn't want to use a real dark color, and this one is very complementary to our piece. I don't care, again, whether I get this just super duper even, because we are kind of going for that distress look. So if you have light and dark places, that's fine, because that just adds to the look of the distress. All right, so there's our two pieces. It's kind of hard to see because the pumice stone is a little bit lighter color. But in the finished product, when I take a picture for you at the end, you'll be able to see it pretty clearly. Alright, so now we've got our base down there, and now we're going to just do a little bit of accent coloring. This is where I'm either going to use a marker, or if you have the watercolor pencils, which are on sale right now at on Bello's Designs. You can get a really good price for these. I love the watercolor pencils, so go check that out because the price is excellent right now. Look under the mega sale tab. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and just use a marker. This one is, like I said, kind of a bluish grayish color, and it matches the colors. And all I'm going to do on the sentiment tag is just go around the edge to pick up the bluish color that's in our card. Alright, so that just gives us a nice little accent color on that. Zoom in a little bit on those if we can get that to focus in. There we go. Now, for the clock here, I want to use both the browns and the blues to kind of pick up, as you can see in this example. So, I will take the blue, or the gray color again, and I'm going to do the outer edge, and then I will do some of the inner circles as well. Okay, and then as you saw there, I also went ahead and then just did some of the accenting with the brown. So I've got both the browns and the blues that kind of pick up a little bit of what's in our background. Now I'm going to show you a little hint. Sometimes when you cut these things out, you might have a little bit of a white edge that's showing. So what I do is I take my marker, one of my black markers, or you can use ink, and then just basically just kind of run it along the edge of my piece that I've cut out. And what this does is if there's any white that's showing, it will cover that up so that you've got this nice smooth look without having the white kind of showing up there. It just sharpens up your image quite a bit. So we just run that along there. You're not necessarily wanting to come around and color any more on the front side. You're just basically hitting the edge part of your cutout piece. Alright. So now we are ready to go ahead and start putting our card together. So we will take our background piece, and first we'll go ahead and put our best dad of all time down. So I will grab the running tape, and you can use your glue as well on this, and I'm just going to hit the edges so that we can get it stuck down. And position that where we want it to be and stick it down. Now before I go ahead, I'm going to zoom this out just a little bit so we can take a little bit bigger picture of the the whole effect. I do like to go ahead and add just a little bit of a border around with the chipped sapphire. This just to me kind of ties the whole thing together, gives it a frame that actually draws the eye to the center. I think if you watch many of my videos, you notice that this is something that I do on just about all my cards. I like the look that it gives, and to me it just kind of gives it a nice finishing touch. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and mount our art card onto our frame. All right, so for the final part, we are just going to use some dimensionals on our clock. So I'm going to grab my box here and get out a few dimensionals. And we're just going to pop those onto the back. So I've got a couple of dimensionals on there. And we will mount those on. And there's our card. And if you'd like to, you can put a sentiment on the inside. I always like to leave the inside blank. That's just my preference. But if you want to put a sentiment on the inside, you can do that as well. Thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today. I hope you enjoy making this Father's Day card. Remember to check out the delbellosdesigns.com website for more tutorials on the design team page. Have a great day.